Hi everybody. Going to cover my rifle setup for Western big game. So I'll also cover ammo I use as well as some of the basic optics I'm using on this setup. So first things first, it's a Christensen Arms Ridgeline chambered in 308. Everything is kept stock for the most part. No bedding on stock, same stock. No fancy muzzle brake on there. Got the carbon fiber wrapped barrel. And I'll dive into some of the modifications I've done on it. So first and foremost, working from front to back, cheap Caldwell bipod. You can pick them up for $40 from Bass Pro. Nothing fancy there. It attaches to the sling stubble stud. Excuse me. Which is not the best connection. I'm not a huge fan of it. I've had it pop off on a number of times, but it's what I got right now. I'm going on a Colorado elk hunt here in about 2 weeks, so I don't really have time to change it. I would love to upgrade to a Picatinny mount, so that would require more drilling into the stock, which it's not ready to do right now. Going a little bit further back, we'll go to the optic setup. So it is a Vortex Viper PST 5-25 by 50. First focal plane. I really like the first focal plane. I didn't grow up shooting second focal plane, so it was just how I learned. Really like the flexibility and being able to have those windage holdovers in case I need a follow-up shot, and I know that my turret's always going to be dialed regardless of what my zoom range is. Butler Creek end caps, nothing fancy. They're pretty standard. They provide a little bit of protection. They do pop up kind of often, unfortunately, when I got the gun loaded on the side of my pack. So, you know, whether it's a stealthy hunter or rifle cover or some other cover for your optics and action, that's something I'll be looking into in the future. I really don't want to add more bulk to the rifle because the rifle is kind of heavy at about 12-ish.5 pounds. Working back here, adjustment on the scope, it's about a 54 MOA, which is plenty for me. You know, I'm not going to shoot at a target beyond 500 yards. With 54 MOA on a 308, I can get to beyond 1,000 yards, which is the furthest I'll be able to shoot in practice. So that's more than fine for me. One thing I will note, there is an illumination knob on the left side next to your parallax adjustment. I've had some issues with the illumination knob actually working. It seems to run through batteries pretty quick. I don't know if that's something I need to contact Vortex about or what have you, but I don't really worry about it because I don't really use it that often. I know it'd be nice and low light, but just not something I'm really concerned with right now. Windage knobs, pretty standard there. I've got high rings. These are the mid-tier Vortex rings. They're not super expensive. I wish I had gotten lower rings, so just for reference, on a Picatinny mount or the scope mount rail, the high, I've got more than a finger's clearance right here, so I wish I got lower rings, but it hasn't really caused me an issue yet. Just something to consider if you're building your own setup. Fairly cheap. I think it was like $20 for the base here. You know, you just torque it to specs, and once you're torqued to specs, it's not an issue. Haven't had anything come loose on me as of yet. Trigger check trigger, which comes standard with all Christensen Arms. I like it. It's great. It's clean, crisp. Definitely an upgrade on any other rifle that I've tried. Bubble level, nothing too crazy. I got the mid-tier bubble level. It helps me with those longer shots, making sure that my shots aren't tracking left or right. Really for this, the setup is pretty easy. You'll need a Wheeler leveling kit, and you just put the level in the action here. And I know you're not supposed to, but I put it on top of the cap here because it was the other flattest surface that I had. You can also put it right on top of the rail right here if you want a flatter base to level off of. I mean, it worked fine, and I got it pretty level, and I'm comfortable with it. Magazine holds 4 rounds. I have noticed some feeding issues if you load 3 rounds in there, so the gun really likes either 2 rounds, 1 round, or 4 rounds. I've noticed there's been some feeding issues if you're starting off with the bolt forward, chamber empty, and you've got 3 rounds in there. Just something I've noticed during my testing. Working back a little bit on the stock, I drilled in this Kydex cheek piece. So you just have to have a buddy with steady hands. He drilled 2 holes in there, put it in there. I can link in the description below for where I got this. It helps me get that right height, especially with those high rings. It was something I had to compensate for. But it works well. I took the, it comes with rubber spacers. I didn't really like that because I felt like it provided too much play in this, and I really want this Kydex cheek piece to be really solid when I put my head there. So that just allows for a good way to shoulder the rifle and feels good in my hands. So that's how I kind of set it up. Flipping the gun around, I put my dope chart on the cheek piece. I was unable to find a really good way to actually attach the dope chart to the gun. I tried different tapes, some glues, and none of them really ever worked, unfortunately. And that's really unfortunate because what I had last year was I actually was carrying around this dope chart in my mag pouch at my top, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. I didn't like pulling it out, checking before I dialed my turret. I wanted to have something right on the gun, so I kind of settled for some janky electrical tape, just taping down the best I could. I've also taken a picture of it on my phone, so in case this gets ripped off, I've always got a backup there. But it's kind of my gun setup. It's nothing too crazy, nothing too light, too heavy, no 60 caliber. I mean, the 308 is fairly cheap as far as hunting cartridges go, and it's chambered in a wide variety of different loads and different bullet weights. So that's kind of why I stuck to 308. Christensen mainly comes in a little bit sexier calibers, you know, 300 Win mags, your 28 nozzlers, etc., etc. So it seemed like kind of middle of the road for everything, and that's kind of how I like my approach. Going into ammo, I shot a lot of different factory ammo last year. I tried Barnes, I tried Nozzler, I tried Hornady, and ultimately I talked to Garrett at Christensen Arms, and I asked him, because I know the rifle's guaranteed to sub-MOA, I said, what ammo are you using for that testing? He recommended Black Hills, so did that. I found the Black Hills Gold, and it's chambered with the 178 grain ELD X bullet, which is that same from that Precision Hunter from Hornady. I find that the Precision Hunter from Hornady just wasn't grouping like I expected. I think it's whether it's the primers, the case, or the powder, whatever it is in this, it seemed to work great for my gun. So pull the bullet out here. You know, so I shot a mule deer at 350 yards last year. Shot went great. He dropped right there. It was a heart shot. So so far I'm liking the 178 grain ELDXs. I haven't had any issues with them. I know some people are kind of worried about how it breaks up upon impact. Again, I haven't noticed anything. It buried in the offside shoulder at 350, so on a pretty sizable mule deer, so I like it. Alright, moving on. Go to a little bit of my optics, my bino pack, so marsupial gear. And in here I've got the Vortex Viper HDs 12x50s. Seem to be doing well for my style of hunting out west and glassing. This is only my second trip, so 95% of the time my plan is to glass off my tripod that my camera's currently on. Got a bino mount on there, and I can quick pan, tilt, and 12x50s works great. It's not the most versatile option, but for me and my needs as a guy from the east going out to the west, it does the job. And I really don't need binos when I'm whitetail hunting around here, mainly. Rangefinder. This is a Leupold 1400 RX 1400i. Really a fan of this. It's fairly cheap, but has a lot of adjustability in it, which I really like. It's got bow and true ballistic range as well as rifle settings, so you can dial in regardless of what weapon you're using. And I found it actually does make a difference when I was attacked this year. I noticed that my yardages, because I didn't know about that setting, were off by a yard or two versus when I put it into the bow setting. So super nice there. And that's kind of it for my setup. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put a comment down, reach out to me on Instagram. More than happy to kind of provide you my feedback of my Western setup.